Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're heading east, virtually speaking, to Shanghai.
Mm-hmm. Big one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You reached out wanting to get under the skin of what it's really like living there as an expat.
right. Beyond the sort of tourist view.
Precisely. And you shared this really comprehensive guide from moveandstay.com. They've been helping expats and travelers in Asia for, what, over 25 years?
Yeah, quite a while. They have a lot of experience on the ground there, it seems.
So our mission today is basically to unpack that guide, pull out the key stuff, and give you a clear picture, the good, the challenging, the reality of relocating to Shanghai.
Absolutely. And this Move and Stay guide, it really does cover a lot. Culture,
These
safety.
visas, healthcare, finding a flat.
Exactly. All the practical nuts and bolts, but also the sort of softer cultural things, too. It's pretty thorough, built on, like you said, years of helping people make that move.
Okay, let's dive in there. The guide kicks off with the cultural side of things. Shanghai as a melting pot. That comes through strongly.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just, traditional China. There's this huge modern overlay, lots of Western influence, apparently.
Got loads of people from all over the world, right? The guide suggests that makes it easier to experience different cultures.
That's a really interesting point they make. Because it's so diverse already, you're constantly bumping into different perspectives.
Like you could have your breakfast croissant, meet someone from, I don't know, Brazil for lunch,
Yeah.
and then go for Japanese food in the evening.
Sort of, yeah. That constant mix is, according to moveandstay.com, a real defining feature of expat life there. Makes it quite unique, maybe less isolating than some other places could be initially.
Makes sense. Now, thinking about practicalities, safety, always a big question mark when moving somewhere new, especially a massive city.
Mm-hmm. Top priority.
The guide is actually quite reassuring on this. It says Shanghai is generally pretty safe, lower crime rates than many other big cities globally.
Yeah, it ranks as one of the safest in China, which is a significant plus that Move and Stay highlights. It's definitely a draw for people moving with families, for example.
But it's not naive about it either. It adds that usual caveat, right? Be aware of your surroundings.
Exactly. Standard big city advice. Watch out for petty theft, especially on crowded public transport. So, safe overall, but, keep your wits about you. Common sense, really.
Right, okay. Then there's this other layer, local customs, etiquette. The guide really flags this as important.
Yeah, and it brings up Guangxi.
Guangxi, relationships, connections.
Mm-hmm. It's presented as pretty crucial, both for your social life and maybe even more so for work.
So it's not just networking like we might think of it.
It seems deeper than that, based on the guide. It's
Yeah.
about building trust, mutual obligation. Move and Stay suggests that really investing time in building good Guangxi can make a huge difference to your whole experience. It's less transactional, more long-term investment in people.
Interesting. Okay, so let's imagine someone's just arrived. Bit overwhelmed, maybe.
Yeah.
What are the absolute basics? The guide has these Shanghai fast facts.
Yeah, the quick hits. Useful for just grounding yourself. Stuff like currency is the Chinese yuan or RMB.
Right, yuan, renminbi, same thing, basically.
Yeah, population massive, over 26 million people.
Wow.
Language is Mandarin, obviously, but the guide does say English is pretty common in the main expat areas and business circles.
Okay, that's helpful. And weather.
4 proper seasons, hot, humid summers, winters can get quite chilly, so you need a varied wardrobe. That's the kind of practical tidbit Move and Stay likely includes to help people prepare.
Good to know. All right, next big one. Healthcare. Always feels daunting navigating a new system.
Definitely. The guide breaks down the options public versus private.
And the takeaway is,
Well, the public system exists, of course. But Move and Stay notes that a lot of expats end up using private facilities.
like that, quality, language.
A mix, it seems. Often perceived higher quality, maybe shorter waiting times, and critically, more likely to have English-speaking staff.
But more expensive, presumably.
Oh, yeah. Significantly. Which is why the guide really, really stresses getting comprehensive medical insurance. That's non-negotiable, really.
Got it. Okay, what about just getting around? A city of 26 million.
Yeah.
Sounds like traffic nightmares.
Actually, the guide is super positive about the public transport, calls it amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
The metro system, especially, apparently it's huge, runs efficiently, and is pretty cheap. Covers most places you'd need to go.
That's a massive plus. What else? Buses? Taxis.
Buses are there, maybe a bit trickier with language initially. Taxis and ride sharing are easy to find.
Yep.
And cycling is becoming more popular too. Lots of bike sharing schemes. And the practical tip, get a transport card. Use it on pretty much everything. Makes life much easier.
Smart. Okay, shifting to work. For many listeners, that's the whole reason they'd move. Visas.
Hmm.
What's the main one people need?
The guide focuses mostly on the Z visa. That's the standard one if you've got a job offer and you're going there to work.
Z visa. Got it. Any others mentioned?
Briefly, the R visa, but that's more for highly specialized, high-level talent. So for most people listening, it'll be the Z visa process they need to understand.
And that process. The guide calls it a potential maze. Sounds fun.
Huh. Well, yeah, Move and Stay is realistic about it. There's paperwork, bureaucracy, hoops to jump through.
What are the basic steps?
Roughly.
Okay, so first you need the job offer. Then your employer helps apply for a work permit. Then you apply for the Z visa in your home country.
Right.
Then you arrive in Shanghai, and you've got more to do. Register with the local police, get a medical checkup done there, and then crucially apply for your residence permit within 30 days.
Okay. Quite a few steps.
It is, but the guide does say your employer usually helps a lot with this.
Mhm.
They're used to the process, so you're not typically left completely on your own to figure it out. That's reassuring. So you've got the visa, you started the job. What's the work culture like? Move and Stay gives some pointers on this too, right?
It does. Paints a picture of it being very fast-paced, quite competitive.
Uh-huh.
And again, relationships matter. That Guangxi thing comes up in the work context, too.
So networking is key, but in that specific cultural way.
Exactly. Also, be prepared for potentially long hours and maybe a more hierarchical structure than some Western companies. Oh, and the concept of face. Saving face, giving face, that's important to understand. Being mindful of public perception, reputation.
It sounds intense.
And dynamic. The guide stresses how quickly things change in Shanghai's business scene. So you need to be adaptable, flexible, go with the flow sometimes.
Okay, so beyond work and visas, building a life,
Yeah.
making friends, the guide acknowledges this can be tough at first, feeling a bit isolated.
Yeah, it's realistic about that potential initial loneliness, but it also offers encouragement, saying there are tons of ways to connect.
Like what? Any strategies?
Practical stuff, really. Trying to learn some Mandarin, even just basic greetings, shows effort.
Makes sense.
Pursuing hobbies, join a sports team, a book club, a cooking class, whatever you're into. Just getting out there.
Being open.
Yeah, being approachable. And also managing expectations. Building real friendships takes time anywhere, right? Same in Shanghai.
True. Are there specific groups for expats?
Yes. The guide mentions several. Internations, that's a global thing. They have events. The Shanghai Expat Association for more local support. And Meetup, for finding groups based on any interest imaginable.
So plenty of options to find your tribe, so to speak.
Seems like it. Those groups can be a great starting point for meeting people who are in the same boat.
And what about networking? Not just for jobs, but generally connecting.
Right. The guide broadens that out too. Suggests things like industry events, conferences, if they're relevant to your field.
Chambers of Commerce.
They often have events, even just company social gatherings. And online, it points to LinkedIn for professional stuff, Internations again, and Eventbrite for finding local workshops or talks. Lots of avenues.
Okay, so it's not all work and bureaucracy. What about the fun stuff? Lifestyle, leisure. Shanghai sounds pretty vibrant.
Oh yeah, Move and Stay definitely paints it as a city that never sleeps, almost.
Yeah.
Always something happening, something new opening.
Culturally, what does the guide recommend checking out?
Some big hitters. The Shanghai Museum for Chinese Art and History. Yuan Garden, a classical Chinese garden meant to be beautiful.
Like an oasis in the city.
Kind of, yeah. And the Shanghai Grand Theater for performances, it really highlights that blend, again, ancient culture right alongside modern entertainment.
And food. You mentioned food earlier.
Yes. The guide calls Shanghai a foodie paradise, and I believe it. Huge range, from amazing street food stalls.
I'm gonna try those.
Definitely. All the way up to fancy Michelin-starred places. And the nightlife is apparently just as varied. Cozy bars, huge clubs, everything in between.
Any specific food recommendations?
It explicitly says you have to try xiaolongbao, soup dumplings.
Ah, yes. Iconic.
Absolutely. And suggests exploring areas like the French Concession or Xintiandi for lots of cool restaurants and bars.
Nice. And shopping, if you're into that.
Plenty of that, too. Nanjing Road is mentioned as, one of the world's busiest shopping streets, everything under the sun there.
Okay.
Then Huahai Road for maybe more trendy international brands. And for bargain hunters, there's a place called AP Plaza under one of the metro stations, apparently good for electronics, souvenirs, that kind of thing.
Right. The market experience. Okay, so someone's sold. If you're seriously thinking about it, let's talk preparation. Finding accommodation, How do you even start?
The Move and Stay Guide suggests starting online. There are specific websites geared towards expats, with listings often in English, makes it easier to browse initially.
What kind of places are available? Just apartments?
Mostly modern apartments and high-rises, but also some traditional lane houses, though they might vary more in cost and condition.
And what should people look out for when choosing?
Key things the guide mentions. Location, 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 especially thinking about your commute. Budget, obviously, and really understanding the lease terms, a deposit needed, how much rent up front, etc.
Any tips for the actual search process?
Yeah, a really good one. Book temporary accommodation for when you first arrive, like a service department for a few weeks.
Why is that?
So you can physically explore different neighborhoods, get a feel for them before you commit to signing a year-long lease on a place you've only seen online. Much safer approach.
Smart. Okay, the $1 million or maybe million yuan question. Cost of living. Is Shanghai expensive?
The guide gives some ballpark figures in RMB, but stresses heavily that it varies a lot.
Depending on lifestyle.
Totally. And where you live. Rent is a big factor. A one-bed apartment could range massively depending on the district and the building quality. Maybe 8,000 to 15,000 RMB a month as a very rough estimate from the guide.
Okay. What about daily expenses? Food, transport?
Groceries, maybe 1,500 to 3,000 RMB a month. Again, depending if you buy local or imported stuff. Imported is way pricier. Transport, if you're mainly using the metro, maybe 300, 500 RMB. Eating out can be anything from super cheap street food to very expensive fine dining. Entertainment depends entirely on your social life.
So budget carefully based on your own habits.
Exactly. It's possible to live relatively affordably or very expensively.
And language. We touched on it, but how crucial is learning Mandarin, really?
The guide puts it this way. You can get by in English in many central areas and expat bubbles, But learning even basic Mandarin makes daily life so much easier. Shopping, taxis, just interacting with people outside the bubble. And importantly, it shows respect for the local culture, which goes a long way.
How to learn? Any suggestions?
The usual suspects, language classes, apps like Duolingo or Memrise are mentioned, but the best way, practice. Try speaking with locals whenever you can, even if it's just ordering coffee.
Okay. So pulling it all together, Move and Stay lays out some pros and cons. What are the big positives?
The guide highlights the melting pot culture, the safety, good job opportunities, the vibrant social life, and the fact that it's a great hub for traveling elsewhere in Asia.
And the downsides? The challenges?
Main ones mentioned are the language barrier if you don't learn Mandarin, the high cost of living, especially rent, air pollution can be a concern sometimes, and needing to figure out the healthcare system.
It's a balanced view, then. Finally, the guide mentioned some unique Shanghai experiences. The must-dos.
Yeah, the things that really give you the flavor of the city. Exploring the Bund with all its historic architecture, trying all the street food, wandering through Yew Garden, visiting temples, just soaking up that unique atmosphere. Those are the things Move and Stay points to as making it special.
So wrapping up our deep dive, based on this moveandstay.com guide, Shanghai sounds incredibly dynamic. A city of contrasts, opportunities, energy.
Definitely. A real mix of East and West, tradition, and hyper-modernity. Full of possibilities for expats.
But preparation is key, right?
Yeah.
Understanding the practicalities, the cultural nuances, the potential hurdles.
Absolutely. The guide really emphasizes going in with your eyes open, being adaptable, and making an effort to engage with the local culture. That seems crucial for a positive experience.
Hopefully this run-through, using the insights from Move and Stay's extensive experience, has given you a much clearer, more grounded sense of what expat life in Shanghai actually involves. Covered some of those initial questions.
Yeah, hopefully provides a solid starting point for anyone considering the move.
And just as a final thought to leave you with, thinking about that intense fusion of cultures, the incredibly fast pace of change we've talked about, how might living in Shanghai actually change you? How do you think your own cultural identity might shift or evolve in that kind of environment? Which parts of your own background might feel challenged and which might be really enriched? Something to ponder.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and thanks again to moveandstay.com for the detailed guide that made it possible.